And so excited to see everybody's beautiful faces today. How many of you, when you came in, got some apple cider? How many of you were told, Amanda said you have to drink the apple cider?
I felt kind of obligated to.
You did? You loved it.
Teresa pushed it on me. No.
Listen, thank you, and thank you, Teresa. That's okay. In my defense, I thought about doing like warm apple cider for everybody. Have a nice little cup of warm apple cider after service. Put the oranges and the cinnamon sticks in there. But honestly, I was afraid that everyone would walk right out the doors and no one would drink it, and then I'd have to throw it all away. So I'm like, I'm going to give them cold cider before service, and everybody has to drink it. Like, we're taking the Kool-Aid together, people. We're taking the Kool-Aid together. We're drinking that Kool-Aid together. So I did that on purpose because I'm starting a series, and it's called Seeds, okay? So how many of y'all like apples? Apples are good. Apple cider is awesome. I love apples. We love apples in our home. If I'm going to buy apples, I'm going to buy Honeycrisp apples. That's one thing I'm going to splurge on. I want big, fat Honeycrisp apples, the one crispy, and I want the, Pastor Jake loves them coming right out of the fridge when they're nice and cold and crispy, and we're going to keep cutting here. Hold on. So the way my favorite that I love, and I learned this from Pioneer Woman, was I love apples with peanut butter and chocolate chips. I mean, if we're going to have fruit, why not throw a little chocolate and peanut butter on that thing too, like a little Reese cup with it, right? So love apples. Inside have what? You have the seeds, yeah? The core of it, the seeds, and I don't eat the seeds. I don't eat the core. Listen, I'm not that hungry. Just cut the core out, cut the seeds out. I just want the apple. I like the skin. Throw some peanut butter on there. Throw some chocolate chips on there. That's amazing. But it's inside. Did you know that we can count? I can take apart this apple right now, and I can tell you how many seeds are inside of this apple. Okay, we can count that together. But I can't take one seed from an apple and tell you how many apples, if we were to plant that seed, how many apples would come from that one seed. And so the seeds in our lives, the seeds that were planted, all of us, seeds have been planted in our lives. And when we throw out seeds to people, we don't know how much fruit that one seed is going to bear. But I can tell you that when I was 14 years old and I went to a winter youth conference and I gave my heart to the Lord, accepted the Lord in my heart, I guarantee that speaker had no idea that there was a 14-year-old girl who would blaze and have a heart to blaze for Jesus. And that she would become a youth pastor, that she would become a college pastor. She would work with district youth pastors. That her and her husband would move to Florida and become campus pastors at a church. Once that seed that was planted that changed my life, that has produced so much fruit. The seeds that were planted in your lives years ago is still producing fruit. And what's awesome is when we're producing that fruit, it's sweet. Because when we draw near to Jesus, that fruit is sweet. And thus, the apple cider. Mary, I know you didn't like the apple cider, and I know you took one for the team, and I appreciate that you get to enjoy that sweet apple cider this morning. That's okay. That's right. That's all right. But I love that. I heard that a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, this is awesome. This fits right in. We can count the seeds in one apple, but take one of those seeds, and we'll never be able to count how much fruit, how many apples came from one seed. I love that. So talking about seeds, I had a privilege last week. I don't know if you all met her. There was a lady here named Donna last week. Wonderful, wonderful lady. And she came up to me after church and she was talking to me and she said, my father, she came here to watch Blaine and Christine last week. And she said, my father was the pastor that we built the dome here, that we built this sanctuary, we built this church. And I was like, oh, tell me. Like, I love hearing stories about this because they were over where Plato's is now. That was where the sanctuary was and the church. And then they built this property 34 years ago. And what was so cool was she said, she was telling me different stories and stuff. And I started thinking about the seeds that were planted probably 36 years ago, 37 years ago, when they started thinking, we need to expand. We're going to build. Someone had the idea of coming up with a dome. But then she was telling me how they had to put all these panels up because the delay in the sound was so significant from the front to the back if they didn't have these panels. So that's why they had to put all these panels up here in the ceiling. And she was telling me how when they did, she said, the contractor, they wanted this building in here, she said, can seat about 800 people. And she said, she goes, we wanted to be able to fit more people, but we tried to get creative in how we were going to do it. And she said, the contractor had a dream at night. So this is all happening years and years and years ago before we were thought of being together at Reach Church. Some of you, Hannah Laura was, I'm sure she was here. But he had a dream, and his dream was build these arches and you can knock out these walls so that you can seat, because back here, what's our children's area? We've got our children's area. We've got the offices. We've got the conference room back here. If you pop out all of these arches, you can fit double the people in here. So their seed that they planted years ago was not just to fit 1,800 or 800 in here. It was to fit 1,600 people in here. That when they built this, there was a plan. There was a seed that they sowed. And what I kept thinking was, the seeds that were sown, we're tasting the fruit of those seeds that were planted 34 years ago. Then this building was built. It was built for us. It's going to be built for my daughter's children. That they will taste the fruit of the seeds that were planted years ago. And it's funny how that happens, how the seeds that we plant, we think it's just impacting us. But seeds don't grow into, an apple seed doesn't grow into an apple tree overnight. It takes a long time to produce fruit. And we're tasting that fruit 34 years ago, thankful for those seeds that were planted years and years ago. One more thing, too, a cool piece of information that she shared with me was that when this building was built, behind these walls are the prayers of the people who built this church. They prayed for us. So we are covered. We are surrounded by the prayers of the people who built this church. What a legacy. What a strong heritage. The prayers of the people who probably a lot of them, maybe some are not here maybe at this point anymore. But we're still living those prayers because of the seeds that were planted years ago. We get to walk in that. We get to walk in the shade of the pastors who in the past that had given us a great sound system, who had a vision for this building, had a vision for this stage, had a vision for, growing children's ministry. There's all these things, the seeds that were planted. And you know what? Back in Ohio, my best friend at her property that she has this huge apple tree. And this is what the Lord has kind of laid on my heart is the apples that have fallen from the tree. Sometimes I remember the property, we would just let them fall on the ground. Just let them fall on the ground. They would just, get gross and they're disgusting on the ground. The bugs get them and stuff. We're not going to waste. We're not going to waste those seeds. We're moving forward. And we're going to take every last apple because those seeds that were planted, we're not going to leave those on the ground to get disgusting. We're going to pick those up and we're going to scatter those seeds. And we're going to bring people in here, and they're going to reach people, and they're going to reach your community. They're going to reach all these mobile homes over here. I'm saying that, speaking that forth. We're going to reach Largo. We're going to reach Plato. We're going to reach the schools in Clearwater. We're going to reach the children in my daughter's school that she's going to go to in high school, and the school she's going to, the children that she's in school with now. We're going to take those seeds, and we're not going to let them go to the waste. We're not going to let them fall down and get destroyed, but we're going to pick up those apples, and we're going to scatter those seeds for the future generations. We are together in this, and we're going forward, and we're going to scatter those seeds together. And we're going to be intentional. This is our declaration. We're going to be intentional with our seeds. That we're not just going to be, we're going to make some sweet apple cider that even Mary will love. She will want to drink it. Amen. All right. So, talking about seeds. We're not, some of you may think we're going to be talking about the parable of the seeds today. Nope, you already know that. We've talked about that a couple weeks ago, maybe a month and a half or so ago. Read this week. I encourage you in your time. Make a note. Are y'all taking notes today? You're going to want to take notes of this. That's right. You're going to want to take notes. You're going to want to feast on this week. Read this week Matthew 13 for yourself. Read it. Read one section of it, the parable of the seeds, the parable of the sower, the parable of the weeds, and the parable of the mustard seed and the yeast. Read those for yourself. That's just your homework, people. Nobody likes homework, but this is good homework. This is good. This is what this ministered to my heart this week. But I'm like, we're not going down the road of, we know the parables, okay? And if you don't, you're going to read it this week, and you'll learn it. And we pray that the Lord will speak to you how it will affect you. But today, what we're going to focus on, we're going to be speaking on, is Ruth. And we're going to be concentrating on Ruth. We're going to be talking about seeds and harvest. And as I was learning more, we know about Ruth and Naomi and what she says. She told her mother-in-law, I will go with you. Wherever you go, I will go. Your God will be my God. And as I start digging into this and really digging in this to learn this, I really wanted to know more background. So I'm going to share with you some of the background, the seeds, as we're going to kind of lay the foundation this week for the seeds. For next week, we're going to be talking about more seeds and harvest, okay? But we're going to be talking about Ruth. So it starts with, in Ruth 1, we're going to be talking just the whole book of Ruth. There was a famine in the land in Bethlehem, all right? And I want to stop right there, though, because in Deuteronomy 11, you got your word. Let's pull up Deuteronomy 11, 13 through 19. Okay. So Deuteronomy 11, 13 through 19. It says, so we're going back, and Moses is telling the Israelites, if you do this, basically, God will have his hand upon you. If you turn your back on the Lord, his hand's not going to be upon you, okay? So in Deuteronomy 11, 13, it says, if you faithfully obey the commands I am giving you today to love the Lord your God and to serve him with all of your heart and with all your soul, then I will send rain on your land in its season, both autumn and spring rains, so that you may gather in your grain, new wine, and olive oil. I will provide grass in the fields for your cattle, and you will eat and be satisfied. In verse 16, be careful, or you will be enticed to turn away and worship other gods and bow down to them. Then the Lord's anger will burn against you, and he will shut up the heavens so that it will not rain, and the ground will yield no produce, and you will soon perish from the good land the Lord is giving you. Fix these words of mine in your hearts and minds. Tie them as a symbol on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. This is what I love right here. Teach them to your children. Talking about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Spread those seeds to the next generation. Follow God. If you follow him, he will bring rain. You will not have an issue. You will not have drought. He will take care of you. Your animals will be taken care of. There will be grass in the field. But if you turn away from the Lord, he's going to shut it up. He's going to shut up the heavens, and it says, and there will be no rain, and you will experience drought. Okay, so we're back. We're looking back at how Moses had talked to the Israelites, getting ready to go into the promised land. They're in the promised land, and years later, now we're dealing with a family, and we've got a husband, Elimelech, and Elimelech. I get this wrong every time. Elimelech and his wife Naomi. So you've got husband and wife, and there's a famine in Bethlehem. So what happens? What's that show? That people have turned their hearts away from God, okay? Because because God's word doesn't contradict himself. If you follow me, I'm going to take care of you. You don't have to worry. But what happens whenever things don't quite go our way? We get distracted with little things, and then what happens? We turn our backs. And then what happens? We try to scramble and we try to fix it. Listen, I'm not telling you something I haven't done 100 times. The Lord is speaking to my heart about this, is don't try to fix everything. Walk and let me fix it for you. Follow him. Okay? So you've got Elimelech and Naomi. You got a husband and wife. Okay? And he decides for his family, we're out of here. There's famine, so we're going to go where? To where the grass is greener. Okay? The problem is that where he was wanting to go at in Moab, the grass is greener. God said, don't go there because they worship other gods. You stay right where you are and follow me, and I'll take care of your needs. He'll take care of us. So he leaves with his family. He has 2 sons, and the 2 sons marry. They go to Moab, and they're getting engulfed in their culture, and they marry 2 women. They marry Orpah, and they marry Ruth. Okay, well, what happens next? The husband dies. Dad dies. Oh, that's not good. You've got a mother-in-law who's left, and she's by herself. She doesn't have a husband anymore, but that's okay because she's got her 2 sons who will help take care of her, except for both of them die too. And so you have 3 women. You've got mom, the mother-in-law, and you've got 2 daughter-in-laws now who they don't have their guys to take care of them. And all three of them had passed away. They start going, all of a sudden Naomi decides, we're going to go back to Bethlehem. I'm not going to stay here and worship. I'm not going to worship your gods. I'm going back to my people, to where Israel was, to the Israelites, to Bethlehem. And when they leave, the girls go with them. And what she do? She turns around and she tells them, hey, go back to your families. You have a better chance of staying with your families. You have a better chance of staying with them than to come with me. I don't expect you. I can't have any more children. I can't give you any more husbands. You have a better chance of getting remarried and having children with your people. All right, so let's go to Ruth 1. We're going to stop right there. We're going to go talk about Ruth 1, and then in verse 9. May the Lord grant that each of you, this is Naomi talking to the girls, may the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband. Then she kissed them goodbye, and they wept aloud and said to her, we will go back with you to your people. But Naomi said, return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have more sons who would become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to even have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters. It is more bitter for me than for you because the Lord's hand has turned against me. At this point, they wept aloud again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. Then Ruth clung to her. So at this point, you have Naomi, and she's got 2 daughter-in-laws, and she's trying to convince these girls, go back to your people. And Orpah, she kissed her. She's not happy about it. She had already started going on the journey with her mother-in-law, and she goes back to her people. Now, I want to stop right here, too, and say, as I was researching this, I didn't realize this, but Orpah, you have the mother-in-law, and you have 2 daughter-in-laws, Ruth and Orpah. Orpah had 4 giant sons that were giants. One of them named Goliath. The other line, her sister-in-law ends up down the road, ends up getting married to Boaz. We're going to get there. And has a son named Obed, who has a son named Jesse, who has a son named David. And so you've got one sister-in-law who has a son named Goliath, and then Ruth's great-grandson is David, who kills Goliath. And that's insane to me. That was like, I didn't realize that, like, that it was like that, the family lines, they both went on with their lives, and the blessing still trickled down because of Ruth and what she had done and following Naomi. It's like she is in the line. She's one of 5 women in the line of Jesus that is mentioned in the Bible. So cool. So back to this. So Orpah goes back to Moab, and Ruth replies in verse 16. I love this. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. The seeds that happened in this moment, Ruth had a choice. I can go back to my people, serve my gods, or I can go with Naomi. Because even though Naomi had gone into Moab with her husband, she still had a heart for the one true God. And that impact was a covering those seeds that had been probably planted in Ruth's life. There was a covering over her that she was willing to risk it all. She was really willing to go to a new land. And back then, if you didn't have a husband as your covering, a lot of times you ended up as a prostitute. You ended up it was not a safe place for you would be taken advantage of as a woman. And they knew this. They both knew this, but she said, I'm willing to leave it all. I'm willing to follow after you. And whoever your God is, your God is my God. Where you go, I will go. Those seeds in that moment that were spoken from her set the foundation of what happens in the rest of the book of Ruth. And we'll get into this more, Ruth, the second, the second, third, and fourth chapter. But I want to get this across, that the words that we speak, that how we have a way as humans we get so consumed with us. Can get so consumed with Amanda. I can get so consumed with the fact that when we go out of, to a park yesterday, and we wanted to play disc golf yesterday, but there was already like 5,000 people there playing disc golf. I focused on Amanda. Not my proudest moment, people, not my proudest moment. Then my dog won't quit barking in the car. And I'm like, just a little break from my dog would be great. A little 5-pound Yorkie, that would be great if we just had a little break from the dog. And you know what? I made it about me. Those seeds, and you know what my husband said to me yesterday? Moment of shame. He's like, listen, this is why he's the head of my home, because sometimes I don't think past my dog barking in the car. And he says, you know what? Or we could just be thankful that we get to have a family day together and that we're all healthy and that we're together in this car. You know what? Not my proudest moment, people. Not my proudest moment. But the seeds that we speak, the seeds, our attitude, the seeds that we plant, that did something when he spoke that to me. For Ruth, the impact of her mother-in-law, it can be unusual to have that kind of relationship with your mother-in-law. I'm thankful for my mother-in-law because she has covered us. She's amazing. My mother-in-law is amazing. Listen, I would follow my mother-in-law. I would go with her. But in that moment that Ruth had declared, I'm speaking it forth as it is. I will follow you. I will follow you. I will go. We'll go with whatever we need to do. I will go with you. And that heart of Ruth going to an unseen land that she's not familiar with. God's going to call some of you. I just feel this like stirring in our church, and it's exciting because God's calling. It's almost like we just got to doing this event, and the seeds that you guys are planting, you coming alongside of Pastor Derek and Angie and alongside of Pastor Jake and myself, the seeds that you guys are planting is incredible. The gifts that I talked maybe a month ago, 6 weeks ago, something like that, about your gifts. And the gifts that you all are using blows us away. We brag on you all. We brag. We're so happy. We're so thankful for the seeds that you all are planting and that you're willing to use your seeds to join together with us. We're just putting our seeds in a big bucket and we're going to shoot them out like big candy rockets, and just we're going to hit our city with our seeds. Because there is, as I talked about with Naomi and Ruth, there's a covering that happens when you plant those seeds. It's not just that you get fruit, that you get, if you plant an apple tree, the apple tree I was telling you about in Brookville at my best friend's house, the apple tree that's there, it doesn't just drop fruit, it gives shade. And there are people outside of these walls who are scorching right now. And the seeds that were planted in your life, in all of our lives, years ago, those seeds are allowing us to provide shade and peace and comfort for those who don't know Jesus. And that's what our seeds do. Not just that we gather up seeds for nothing. You gather up seeds. One of our good friends, Blake and Ashley, they're farmers. They were our next door neighbors and where we came from. And he doesn't just gather up the seeds and not scatter them the next year. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't just buy seeds and then, spend $30,000 on seeds and then do nothing with them. He takes those seeds and he plants them and he tends to them and he tends to them. And then they fertilize it. And sometimes the fertilization process in our lives stinks. It's not fun. Just like the chicken piles that come in on semis right behind our ground whenever we lived right in our backyard was a cornfield. That stinks for days. That's not good. Yeah? But they use it to fertilize the ground. And sometimes the things that we go through stink. But our seeds need it. Our seeds need that so that it can grow properly. So no matter where you are, maybe you just have little baby seeds that someone's planted in your life. Maybe you just have given your heart to the Lord. God's not giving up on you. No matter what you're going through, he's not giving up on you. He's not going to give up on you. And you know what? We're not going to either. You're part of us. You're kind of stuck with us. And we love you. And we love that you're stuck with us. Thank you. And some of y'all may be going through a hard time right now where, you know what? It's like that chicken manure in the back in the cornfield behind the house. It stinks for you, and it might stink for the people close to you too. But you're not alone. You're not alone. We're going through this together. We're here with you. We're a family. You're not alone going through what you're going through. If you're in the middle of your manure, you're not alone. Now, we may come in with waiters, but you're not alone. And some of y'all are seasoned, and you are bearing a lot of fruit. This is a season in your life where you're just bearing a lot of fruit, and you're bearing a lot of shade. Take that shade and extend it over someone who needs grace in their life, who maybe has been burnt out by religion, but they need a little shade in their life. They need a little covering in their life. And to draw them closer to Jesus. It's just so they can rest. Giving them the word. Inviting them to come over and pray with you at your house. Inviting them to come over. Hey, you know what? Why don't you come cook something with me? Or come over and just be with me. And then having worship music playing. Getting that inside of them. Those seeds. Because we never know what the people around us are going through. Never know. But we may not be the mother-in-law to people. We may not be the father-in-law to people. But guys, you are spiritual fathers to someone around you. There's someone you can reach, that you can reach out to and be a spiritual father to. Girls, you can be spiritual mothers to people around you. We all have to do our part. We all do our part. As a mom of a teenage girl, and I love this girl. That is my precious angel girl right there. I'm looking for spiritual mothers. Thank you for spreading your seeds to my daughter. Thank you for loving on her, that you love on her, that you're covering her. You're giving her shade. You're giving her shade to mess up, to do life, to mess up. She don't have to be perfect. Just because she's a pastor's kid don't mean she has to be perfect. She's not. You're not. You're perfect to me, but you're not perfect, girl. Thank you. Because we're doing life together. We're doing this thing called life together. Thank you. Thank you for baby Veda back there as she grows, that we're going to cover her and share our shade and our seeds. We're going to put seeds in her because she's going to be raised up to be a godly woman too. And we're bridging the gap from the older generations to the young. From the oldest down to Veda. We're going to do that because we're going to raise up more, because we're not just thinking of right now. We're thinking of the future generations. As these people who put their prayers inside these walls and built this building for us 34 years ago, we're going to think about the future. And we're going to start sharing our seeds, and we're going to start, declaring with our words, the words of the Lord, outside of these walls. We're not just going to put them on the walls. We're going to put them on the heart of the people, that they're going to know that God is doing something in us. So, I shared in the beginning that number one, we're going to go through these real quick. Number one, my points, we must know our past. It's where the seeds are planted. We must know our past. So talking about this building, talking about the prayers, talking about, the building. It's not about the building. This is just where it houses us. We love our building. We love our area. We love Largo. We love, we love our neighbors. We just got to get out of here. We got to get out of here because we have the space to bring them in. We have a space to house them. We must know our past. It's where our seeds were planted. Number 2, what seeds are we planting today that we will see the harvest? What seeds are you planting today? What seeds am I planting today that will produce a harvest down the road? And number 3, what seeds are we planting today that the future generations are going to be able to harvest? I love that. What seeds are we planting that we're going to be able to see harvest? But just like the pastor who had built this for us and who had put the prayers in there and thought about if we knock out the walls, we can have all this extra area and we can see double the people in here. That pastor's gone. He passed away. But we're harvesting those seeds that he planted. What seeds are we going to plant that I'm going to be gone for, but this church is going to be booming? That this moving forward, this church, we're going to repack out this place. There's going to be so much life in this building that our heads are going to be spinning. We're going to be so overstimulated. Everybody's going to be so overstimulated on Sunday mornings, we're all going to have to go home and take a nap. There's going to be so many people in here. We're in this together. And we're planting seeds together. And your seeds are just as valuable as the person next to you. The people you're impacting is just as important when you walk out these doors as the people that I'll come in contact with. It's in you. I love this. I heard, finishing up with this closing, I heard a long time, I kind of went through this whole thing with seeds in my life last year, and I heard a speaker, and I think it was here, they had said that the seed that is inside of you, who you are to become, it's all right there. It's already in you. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to doctor up that seed to make yourself become who you're supposed to be. It's already in you. Let God grow that seed, because he wants that what you are and who you are is so valuable that he wants to use you, but it's already inside of you. He's pruning, and allows manure to come into our life, and allows the sun, allows us to be watered. But it's already inside of you. That seed is already inside of you. That one seed that's inside of you will produce a lot of fruit. And I'm excited to see how that looks. We're going to continue next week, and we're going to be digging in more today, extra talking and stuff, but to kind of lay the groundwork. But next week we're going to keep talking about Ruth. And this is where the beauty of the seeds that were planted in that moment, there's a harvest that comes. It sets the stage for the rest of Ruth's life. Really, really cool. So, all right, let's pray. All right.